second speaker of the Affirmative team, Matthew, to present this meeting.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We, the Affirmative team, believe that we should make tertiary education free to graduates who stay in New Zealand. Free tertiary education makes for a richer New Zealand society. Tonight I will be talking about 3 points in addition to the flaws with the negative team's argument. 1, why our proposal provides long-term benefits for the New Zealand economy. 2, sort of on the back of what Chen was saying, why these benefits outweigh the short-term costs and the fact that this is feasible. And 3, the social benefits for New Zealand. But first, to clear up some of the problems with the negative team's argument. They said that this really isn't an incentive. Why would people lock themselves in New Zealand for 15 years? And well, I can actually disprove this because I have an example of where this sort of thing works, funnily enough. The Army and the armed forces in New Zealand already offer what's really quite a similar scheme, where they'll put you through university, and in return you have to serve, I think it's 6 years in the respective service. And this does attract people into the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Decline. So if it works on that level, expanding it, having an expanded program of that type, declined, should also be feasible. They also talked about the fact that there's going to be a problem with people violating this scheme. And it's really quite silly because we already have border control. It's not that the negative team laughs, but it's not that difficult that if people have signed into these contracts, we don't issue them a visa to go overseas in the long term, and we can declined, and we can coordinate with British or European or American immigration and say to them, look, don't grant these people, permanent visas. That they're only there for holiday or work purposes. And so if these people try and go overseas, without these visas, they'll end up getting sent back. It's really not that much of an expansion on the border controls that already exist. And they argued that there's already a drive to push people into university, and Labour's got the interest-free student loans. And yes, there is this drive to push people into university, but what this doesn't provide is an incentive for people to stay afterwards. In fact, we've even had a problem with people taking their interest-free student loans, going through their education, and then leaving the country and never coming back. I think there's been radio ads on the moment that are offering declined amnesty or something like that for those people who have fallen behind in their payments. And so on to my substantive case. And Chen has quite clearly outlined why our proposal encourages skilled people to stay in New Zealand. And our proposal, and this is also something that the negative team ignored, in our proposal we said we're going to phase this in over time, and we're going to start with those the high-end courses first and then expand from there. So we're not going to go out and start giving people free education at radio school or whatever. That's not what we're targeting first. Initially, we're going to target things like PhDs, masters, these higher skilled in people, and then we can expand the program from there. Decline. And so this proposal is going to keep these skilled people in New Zealand. Decline. And there's a big advantage for doing this to the New Zealand economy. Because what the New Zealand economy needs to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're facing the problem, the world is changing. And manufacturing and agriculture just, they're not cutting it anymore. And Western economies in general, and it's especially beneficial for the New Zealand economy, are moving towards the research and development side of things, which there's big money in. For example, Nintendo spends more on research and development than the Americans do on education. I mean, this is big money we're talking about. And so New Zealand could really benefit from having a slice of this. And this development is only going to come from the high-end, the skilled people. They're the ones who already, they have a full grasp of their field. They know everything there is to know. They understand everything. And they're going to be the ones moving forward and discovering new things, etc.
So are you assuming that the vast majority of these highly skilled people will want to sign away and imprison themselves in New Zealand for 15 years?
Yes, because the problem is, the problem that you're ignoring, or the problem with your argument here, is that when these people sign into this contract, they're not skilled at the time. When they're signing up, they haven't got skills they can offer overseas. They can't, it's looking at, this provides them an immediate incentive to go to university. A lot of people will decline, will take this incentive up to get them through university. Especially some people might not be able to, to go to university in the first place, and this will allow them to get through it and get those high-end qualifications. Overseas companies aren't going to compete for people who, are going to be doctors in 6 years' time, but they're competing for the people who are currently doctors.
On that point,
this scheme preempts their decline. And so, by having these highly skilled people, we can get in on research and development. And this is particularly good for the New Zealand economy, because New Zealand suffers an economic problem that we're on a large distance away from all the world's markets. When it comes to our agriculture, for example, we've always suffered with the fate of the world market. New Zealand can't set prices for any goods, and there's an added cost to all our goods because we have to ship them overseas. A historical example would be the Long Depression near the end of the 19th century, where the New Zealand economy suffered a period of permanent stagnation due to fall in world wool prices and a general global economic slowdown. Whereas things like research and development, there's always going to be a market for these, and we don't have to pay transport costs. And so this is economically feasible, because at the moment New Zealand is enjoying an economic high. We have this money available, and we can invest it in other things, but this is going to provide a long-term benefit. This is going to guarantee the New Zealand economy in the long term, and this looks at the future. And on to my third point quickly, this also provides for a better New Zealand society. A better educated society is a more stable and content society. People, I think all of us would agree that we all want more education. A lot of people these days, once they've finished working and they retire, they will go back to university. Especially high-end education produces intelligent and interesting people. And this is people who would be more involved in society, more aware of the issues in society, and more able to engage actively with society. And so, in conclusion, free tertiary education makes for a better New Zealand. It provides for our economy in the long term, and provides a number of social benefits. Tertiary education should be free.